I'm using a sweater to make the doll sweater. And the first thing I did was draw around the pattern, and then I stitched. Let me see if I can find, yeah. You see where I stitched a stay stitch all the way around so that the sweater would not ravel. I'm going to lay right sides together and match as best I can the knitted pattern on this sweater. It's not going to be exact. And I will sew the shoulders and under the arms. Notice I will be using the ribbing that's on the bottom of my sweater. In order to keep the sweater from fraying, as you cut open the front, you're going to make stitches up the front and then cut in between the stitches. I will use the ribbing on the sweater for the ribbing on the doll sweater. I finished up the trim, and here's what the front of the sweater looks like by sewing the ribbing onto the front and around the neck of the sweater. Thought that looked nice. Had to do a lot of hand work on this. You could try it, but when I run a zigzag on the seams, finishing up the raw edges, it does stretch it a bit. I just watched one of my favorite shows and did just a little whip stitch here. Or actually I did like a blanket stitch. But you could try the zigzag if you want to. And the worst part, for me anyway, was the sleeve edging. It looked really bad, and I couldn't quite connect the threads of the yarn. So I made a chain, crocheted a little chain, and sewed it on. I envy you people who can crochet and knit things. I'm not very good at it. So this is second to real knitting. Looks like I couldn't do something really complicated. I had some lightweight wool, has a really good feel to it, that I'm going to make the coat. And you draw off the pattern once again, use with long sleeves. And I'm using the fur that I've used in previous videos from the Dollar Tree car towel. I drew my pattern and I attached the sleeve. I'm not going to line it. I'm just going to use the core fabric, I've got a lot of it, to face the front and also face the collar. Try the coat on before you sew it so you'll know how much of the sleeve to cut off to attach the fur. I want at least a little over an inch of fur. So I'm going to hold it up to her arm and pin how much I want to cut off so that I can attach the sleeve. So you're going to fold it and just sew it on to the front. I'll show you. The hem, you do the same thing with the hem. You cut either short or long hem. You could do a maxi coat if you want to. but I like my dresses to come right above the knee, so I may extend this fur right at the knee. That is about 2 inches for me. And I'll do the same thing, fold it, and then sew it to the right side of the fabric. You will want to put the fur on before you sew the sleeve. I was over here getting ahead of myself, and I said, oh, oops. So I'm going to have to take my seam ripper and get that out so I can put my fur on while it's still flat. And you notice here's the side seam. I haven't cut it yet. So I cut 1 inch off of the sleeve. I cut 2 inches and then folded it. And I will place this folded piece onto the end of the sleeve, sew it, and I'll have a little fur-lined sleeve. Alright, I've sewn on the fur trimmed sleeves and the hemline, and I'm ready to put a facing on the front. And remember, I was using napkins, cloth napkins, as my core, so it's already nicely trimmed for me. I just put a strip down the front to make the facing, and when I got to the top, I cut out the front of the neckline. To make the back facing for the coat, you're going to cut a curve, the way the back of the coat neckline curves. And if I can think of an easier way to do this, I'll show you in a future video. I've sewn the facing onto the right side of the coat. There we go. I'm going to turn it. I did clip the corners. And I did a lot better on this side as far as, let's see if I can get that clearer. As far as joining the edging on the cloth napkin. On this side it didn't work out as good, but I'll just make some stitches, and that makes a little neck facing. Here's the finished garment. Looks very nice on the inside. For sure I'm not going to put buttonholes over here. I may do some elastic loops, and I may not. I may just leave it just like that. If you've watched many of my videos, you know how I make a top out of a sock, and you cut the bottom of the sock off, and you cut down through the heel, and you have a shirt. I discovered I only had one sock in this aqua color, so I had to get creative, and I made one side the black and white and the other side the aqua. So you can turn it's both still match the core fabric, and that will make two different outfits. You just have to turn the shirt around. I've seen people on Pinterest make people clothes with a back side that's different from the front side. The easiest way to sew this is either by hand, or if you're going to use your machine, you need to baste, which means make a wide running stitch all the way up to the heel part of the sock, and then you're going to baste here. And if you baste and then sew on top of that basting thread, or at least really close to it, you have less chance of this stretching and pulling out of shape. Here's my basting stitch. I sewed right next to the basting, and you can see how that keeps the fabric from stretching out of shape, the knit fabric. I pull the shirt on from the feet up rather than over the head, and it is going to be a little loose at the top because you want it wide enough to pull it over the hips. The rest of the shirt is up to you. You have to hand stitch it, but do you want this all the way under? Or do you want some of it showing? Also, how much do you want hemmed? You just about have to tuck it 2 times or turn it 2 times. And then hand stitch it. The leggings are made exactly like the shorts, except you do need stretch fabric. When you're sewing this knit or stretchy fabric, you're going to want to lengthen your stitch. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, look in your machine manual, and it will tell you how to lengthen the stitch on your machine. I wanted to show you this. Sometimes when I cut the fabric, it slips and it doesn't join at the bottom. This one did. So all you do is just even it up. I have already sewn the inseam. I'll turn it. And you'll notice I didn't hem or do the waistline yet because I want to try it on my doll. And the back side is higher. It's such a good fit. Look at that. Alright, so now you want to see how far you want to turn down the waistline. And I'm not going to put a band on it, just like it is. It was really hard. I didn't quite get that matched, but that doesn't bother me. On people clothes, I'm more particular. And in the back, I want it about right there. The bottom, you could put feet in this, but I did not. It's harder to get the shoes on if you've got feet on the tights.